right. Yes, your eyes are not deceiving you. The Big Doug and Carmi show is back after a little layoff, a couple of weeks. Recharged our batteries. George and I go all year long, and we pump through the off season as much as we do the regular season. George was traveling, went to Madrid, the primetime games. So for a number of different reasons, we were off. We are back. Today's the Commander's Film Room with Mark Bullock. What a way to start this thing back again, George. I'm super excited to see your face and Mark's face. It's been too long.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be back, Doug. It's good seeing you. We were talking offline with Mark. Mark's youthful face, good seeing him again all over again. It's actually a great time to talk about the Commanders again, too. This last matchup against the Broncos is actually pretty exciting, right? The last couple of months, or the last month, the games have been kind of discouraging. Dan Quinn even said on Hard Knocks last night about the team kind of lost itself for a little while. They were lost for about a month. But the game on Sunday gave us something to be proud of, and our defense looks much improved. So I'm looking forward to learning about that today during our film room.
Mark, load us up here, brother.
Yeah, well, I thought we would start by talking about Dan Quinn's play calling and the defense and how things have changed. Obviously, he took over the play calling from Joe Witt Jr. A few weeks ago, and when Joe Witt was calling the defense, like Dan Quinn was obviously still involved in things there, and they tried to be a very man-heavy defense, and we saw the different struggles. We've broken them all down on film room and stuff before, and in the last few weeks that Joe Witt was calling plays, they did start to shift a little bit more towards zone-based defense, and part of that was they had injuries to Marshawn Lattimore and Trey Amos, and part of it was that they were struggling so badly in man coverage that they needed to shift the zone anyway. Now, since Dan Quinn's taken over, they've gone extremely heavy into zone and using very little man coverage snaps. And they're still doing a lot of the things that they did under Joe Witt, but they are doing them. They're getting to them in different ways, and Dan Quinn's doing a really nice job of varying the coverages and pairing them together so that the offense never quite gets exactly what they're doing. And that's the danger. If you're a zone heavy defense, if you specialize in cover three, like the Dan Quinn cover three Seattle team, it's very obvious what you're going to do. And if you don't get pressure up front, it's really easy to shred those defenses apart with your typical cover three beaters. Or if you're a Tampa 2 team, you have your Tampa 2 beaters and so on and so forth. So what...
Can I ask you a quick question, if you don't mind? So do you think the defensive players, do you think the personnel is better suited for a zone? Because it seemed like they just played quicker and faster this last game.
Yeah, it certainly is now with the guys that they have in there. And, they are playing still fairly basic coverages. They're just getting to them in different ways. And that has kind of simplified things and made them play faster. And so I thought we'd start with, the bread and butter of what Dan Quinn was hired as a head coach for initially, which was cover three.
Mark, before you roll the tape, I'm curious, like on the offensive side, I think we realized there's only so many plays you run. Changing a play caller is more about timing and what play to call next and how to stack those plays. Is that similar to what we're looking for with the defensive coordinator also?
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see that in these clips, the way that the offense will be expecting a certain coverage, and you manage to deceive them by rotating to a different coverage because of the looks that you're showing, and that can force the QB to hold on to the ball, and that allows your pass rush, which Washington's pass rush has struggled since they've had so many injuries up front, and typically Dan Quinn's answer to that has been blitz more, but when they're playing more zone coverage, they can't blitz. So you need to be able to disguise your coverages, mix them up to make the QB hold onto the ball more to give your pass rush a longer time to get home. And that's what we saw them do a really good job of. So we'll start with, this is cover three. As you can see, you got your three deep defenders and you got four underneath. But the way they get there pre-snap look is quite different, because rather than you normally would have in cover three, you would see a single deep defender in the middle of the field, deep safety, and then you'd have your two outside corners sinking back to play the deep thirds, and then you'd have the four guys underneath. But what Washington does here is they play a variation frequently known as cover three buzz, where you have the two deep safeties at the snap. So you can see the two safeties are both deep, and the corners are quite deep as well. So this looks more like either a quarters look or a cover 2 look, because you got both your safeties back deep. And what they do is they just rotate their safeties. So this safety goes deep to play the deep middle, and this safety steps up to do the what's called buzzing or the buzz part of cover 3 buzz. So he plays the underneath zone, and that gives you your 3 deep 4 under. So that it's a very, very common variation of cover 3, but it's one that you run to be able to disguise your look by having your 2 safeties deep rather than just sticking to one in the middle of the field. So we'll run this one on here, and you'll see you get your safety's kind of cheating towards the 3 receiver side of the field. So he's not quite in the exact middle. He's kind of cheating more towards that way, but that's fine. You get your other corner working deep. You've got another corner working deep. And then your other safety is stepping up into the underneath zone. So you've got your 3 deep defenders, your 4 underneath guys. They're staying. And it's a little bit more clear here. 1, 2, 3 deep. 1, 2, 3, 4 around the first down marker. They cover the deep routes well. The quarterback is forced to check down the ball. And then you have multiple guys with eyes and vision on the quarterback, and therefore the ball when it's getting checked down, and they're able to rally to the ball, go make the tackle, and keep the game to a minimum. And that was kind of the theme of what they wanted to do in this game, was, force those check downs, take away the deep stuff, stop the explosive plays, because that's been the bane of their existence this year defensively, is they've given up so many explosive plays. So this was another that they used that coverage. That was cover 3 buzz. This is exactly the same thing. This is cover 3 buzz, and this was the Bobby Wagner interception. So it's just flipped from what we saw before. So last time it was this safety working deep. This time it's this safety working deep and this safety stepping up. But you got Bobby Wagner here as the other underneath zone defender, and again you get your 3 deep, 4 under, and you've got your trips to this side. So you've got the safety cheating towards that side, staying closer to the trip side. And what you get is the Broncos are running a dagger concept. So you get your 1 receiver running a deep over to try to clear out the deep coverage. Then that is meant to vacate this hole for this receiver to run as deep in. But what you have is, because this safety started from depth and there was no threat to him underneath, he was able to read across to see this over route and match it and take it away. And that meant that Bobby Wagner was able to just hold his position. And when this receiver breaks in, Bobby Wagner's just right in the throwing lane, and I don't know why Bo Nix never really sees him, but he doesn't, or he thinks he can fit it in there, but he kind of just throws it straight at Bobby Wagner, and you'll see it from the end zone angle. Like, Wagner hardly even moves at this point. I think he must see him, because he double clutches this. I really don't know why there's the first pump, and then he double clutches, and he's like, okay, I'll still try this. Maybe he's like, oh, I'm under pressure, I got to try it anyway. But that's just never on, and it's straight at Bobby Wagner. It's a pretty bad interception. But yeah, that's cover 3 buzz. So that is the bread and butter of what they want to do is cover 3, and that's what Dan Quinn has done for a long time now. But the reason that you run the cover 3 buzz variation, where you have 2 deep safeties, is that it allows you to pair that coverage with other coverages and disguise it. So we talked before about how you have your 2 deep safeties and you run cover 3 buzz where 1 steps up and 1 rotates deep. And what Denver did is they were thinking, okay, we're getting a lot of cover 3 buzz. It looks like it's 2 deep coverages, but it's actually cover 3. So what they call is 4 verts here. They have 4 receivers, 2 to either side. They all run deep vertical routes. And that is a very common cover 3 beater, because in cover 3, the weakness, you basically would have 3 deep defenders against 4 receivers running deep, right? But what the Commanders actually do, and what your point earlier, Doug, is that Dan Quinn manages to call the right play at the right time. So this time he switches to quarters coverage rather than playing cover 3. So again, they've looked like they were in their same cover 3 buzz that we've seen 2 times already, but actually they play quarters, and what that gives them is a perfect match. So if you have 4 receivers running deep, you have 4 deep defenders covering those deep routes, you've got nowhere to go with the ball. So we'll see that here as we run this on. The quarterback drops back, and you can see he checks to this seam route thinking, okay, this safety is going to buzz up, or he's going to rotate back deep, and I'm going to be able to hit that seam route right up there. But this safety holds his position because he's in quarters. He's able to match that route. You got this safety over the top of this seam route. So, and you got the 2 outside corners on top of the outside routes. There's nowhere to go with the ball because suddenly they're playing quarters instead of cover 3, and you're running a cover 3 beater into quarters, and it doesn't work. So the quarterback then has to hold on to the ball for that little bit extra. He starts feeling pressure, and he tries to scramble and throw it down, and it's an incompletion.
Hey Mark, what was your takeaway from Bo Nix? Were you impressed by his skill set? Do you think he had some deficits? Like, what was your takeaway from him, and how does that compare to the? I'm trying to kind of gauge whether the defense was much improved, or was it Bo Nix deficits, or was it a combination of both?
I don't think Bo Nix was terrible.
Okay.
I think he's a young quarterback. Like, he is sure he's experienced, but I think what you see from Dan Quinn is really experienced play caller and being really good at timing when he's changing up his calls and pairing his coverages. So like they clearly thought that this was going to be cover 3, so they ran a cover 3 beater. And then sometimes when you just call the right coverage to beat the right route combination, which is what they did, they called quarters to beat 4 verticals, and they covered all 4 routes. So there's not a hell of a lot the quarterback can do at that point. All he can do is try to, find his check down. And younger quarterbacks are naturally going to take longer to pick that apart and pick up on that. And by taking that extra time to, figure out, oh, actually they're in quarters, I haven't got anything, I just need to check the check down. This is where a veteran like Alex Smith would have immediately been like, oh, this is quarters, I'm just going to hit that check down straight away, and we're going to get yards after the catch because I'm hitting it so quick. But this is where a younger quarterback, takes an extra beat to recognize, right, this isn't the right coverage for this route combination that we got on. I need to find a check down, and that little moment of panic, that little moment of, oh, this is not the right coverage, I've got to find something else. Suddenly that pocket starts closing in. Von Miller and Jacob Martin start getting close in. Javon Kinlaw starts getting a bit of pressure at the middle, and Bo Nix starts to try to scramble and then doesn't have it. Suddenly the window closes and he has to try to throw it away and gets nothing on the play. So yeah, I thought Nix did a pretty good job. I think he had a pretty good game. I think it was kind of a case of, he met, Dan Quinn did a really nice job in this game of varying his coverages and kind of negating what the Broncos were trying to do. So
with all the injuries you mentioned, Jacob Martin, is the film as good as like what my eyes see when I'm just watching the game? Because he's looked really good in the time that he's gotten with the injuries.
The film's been pretty decent. I wouldn't say it's some outstanding thing where you're like, sign him up to be our top pass rusher for the next 5 years, right? He is approaching, I think, 30 as well. He's older than you think he is.
Right.
So
I didn't realize that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, when you first hear of him, it's like, oh, he's some young guy. He must be in his early 20s and what have you. But no, I think I could be wrong on that, but I think I remember him being like 29. So I don't think I think he's been around for a while, and he's not quite having the same kind of breakout that Dante Fowler had last year with this group, but he's having a decent year.
Sure.
But I don't think it's, he's nailed on to be the starter next year. I still think they'll be looking for more pass rush help in the draft and in free agency. So, yeah. So that was, being able to disguise cover 3 with using the variation cover 3 buzz, and then when the offense thought it was going to be cover 3, they switched up to cover 4 to quarters, and they managed to take away a common cover 3 beater. This time they do a little bit different. So this time they do show a single deep safety in the middle of the field, which typically would indicate cover 3 or cover 1, where you get man coverage and it's just a single deep safety in the middle of the field. But instead, they get to an inverted Tampa 2, and they get there quite a different way. Again, normally in Tampa 2, you'd have one safety work a deep half, the other safety would work a deep half, and then you'd have the Mike linebacker run the middle hole. Your outside corners would play the flats, and your other linebackers would play underneath. The way they do it is by having this safety in the middle. He's going to step up and play that middle hole, and then you're going to have the other safeties sink back deep, and you're going to have the corner sink back deep, and that's going to be your 2 deep half players, and you're going to have the other safety in the hole. And the key thing to recognize here is you've got a safety here that is close down in the box, not quite in the box, but he's not as deep as this defender, and he's going to, at the snap, he's going to turn, sprint back deep. So keep that in mind for the next play. But this is a disguise that they're using, but it's essentially just Tampa 2, but they're just disguising it with a single deep safety rather than starting with 2 deep. And again, it's another way of changing the look pre and post snap for the quarterback to make him hold onto the ball. and you'll see that here. They get to that inverted Tampa 2 is what it's known as, and you get Quan Martin sinking back deep. You get Will Harris stepping up to play the middle hole. You get Sam still sinking back deep, and then you get your other defenders underneath, and suddenly you got your Tampa 2 deep defenders, your hole defender, and you got your 4 underneath, and you're covering most of the deep routes pretty well. And the quarterback again doesn't really have anywhere to go with the ball. His best options are pretty much his check downs. You can see we've got Sam still as a deep half player over this guy. You got Martin as a deep half player over this guy, and you've got Will Harris stepping up in the hole to take this guy. So basically your options are check it down. Suddenly there's a bit of pressure arriving because the quarterback's had to hold on to the ball to diagnose exactly what's happening. He does a nice job here, Bo Nix, of getting out of that and finding a check down, but he doesn't catch the pass and it falls incomplete. So that was an example of inverted Tampa 2. Now, the next time they came back to that, again, the Broncos were like, okay, so if you're going to show as a single high coverage, you're actually going to rotate to Tampa 2. And you're not going to play single high. You're going to play Tampa 2. So what they're going to run is a corner flat combination down here, which a nice way to beat Tampa 2 is you run a corner flat combination where you have one receiver running a corner route, the other receiver running flat, and that makes it really difficult because you got the safety to having to play over the top, but in the middle of the field as well as outside, and you've got a flat defender that basically gets high load. If he sinks back, you get the flat wide open. If he bites up, you can get hit over the top. So that's what the Broncos try to do here. But what the Commanders actually do is they show the same look as what we just saw before. You get a safety deep in the middle of the field. You get this safety stacked up closer to the box, and at the snap, he's going to turn and bail out to the deep half, just like we saw in the previous play. But what they're actually running is they're running quarter half rather than Tampa 2. So what quarter half is, it's often known as cover 6. It's essentially quarters to one side of the field and Tampa 2 or cover 2 to the other side. So this safety is responsible for a deep half like he was on the previous play. But this time, instead of this safety stepping up and playing the hole and this corner dropping back to play a deep half, they're both going to be responsible for a quarter each. So this guy's playing this quarter, and Sam still out here is playing the outside quarter. And then you still get your 4 underneath defenders. The distribution's a little bit different. So what's going to happen is when we see this snap, you're going to see Bo Nix's eyes go to this safety, and he's going to see this safety bail out deep to a deep half, and he's going to be thinking, this is the exact same look I just had with that inverted Tampa 2. I'm going to work to my corner flat combination on this side of the field. And so we'll run this on, and you'll see Bo Nix's eyes. He goes straight to Jeremy Reeves running back deep, and he goes, oh, I'm getting inverted Tampa 2 again. So what does he do? He flips to this side of the field where he's got a corner flat concept, which should beat Tampa 2. But what he actually gets is quarters on this side of the field. And suddenly, Samerstill is able to match this corner route. You've got a flat defender able to match the flat, and he's got nowhere to go with the ball on this side of the field. So again, it's a really nice job of Dan Quinn pairing his coverages and mixing them up so that when they see a look that they're familiar with and they think, oh, this is what we had before, we can call a concept to beat that. Suddenly, the script is flipped and it's a different coverage, and the quarterback, again, is having to hold on to the ball, delay. He doesn't have an option to go to, and that gives this pass rush a little bit of extra time to get home. And as we'll see from the end zone angle, Frankie Luvu needed that time to get home. It was a long pass rush, but he, stunted around to the edge and eventually worked all the way around and back up and made that sack. So
it's so interesting to me that the team is being so efficient now, because these concepts aren't foreign, right? Cover 6, cover 3 buzz, cover 4. I mean, this is standard zone coverage in the NFL. It's just funny how the team is being more efficient now. I don't know if Dan Quinn was coaching it better or calling it in the right sequence, but they are playing crisper, keeping everyone in front of them. It kind of has that wishful thinking component, right? Like you wish you had Trey Amos out there. You wish you had these other people doing it more often because they could be more crisp altogether. One thing I do have a question about, there's been much like hype and hullabaloo about Will Harris coming out. Like, hey, Will Harris, like he was a key component to the defense. I'm curious, did he stand out to you this past game?
And also, is it amazing that I guess bones heal faster than ligaments, but it just sounds crazy that he broke his fibula like a month ago, and he's out there warrior style. But you're right,
Daniel Jones is playing on it.
But you were right, George. This team counted on him for the communication side. I actually was going to ask something similar, Mark. 2 big things happened to me. Will Harris came back, and Sanders drove back outside again. Igbenogany inside. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but it's something we've talked about for a while. Would that be a better situation for the secondary. So I find it all very interesting.
Yeah, so I certainly think Will Harris had a fine game. I don't think he had some outstanding game. I think the overall improvement you're seeing from these guys is that they've probably now had 2 or 3 weeks where Dan Quinn's been the play caller. Obviously, they had the Dolphins game, they had this game, and they had the bye week. So that's been 3 weeks, and they quite clearly made a shift towards we're going to play zone coverage. So they've probably been for 3 weeks now. They've probably been practicing more zone coverage concepts, and rather than when they were under Joe Witt and in training camp and throughout the whole off season, they were practicing a bunch of man concepts. And so now they're getting into a bit more of a rhythm of the different concepts they're running, and being more at home with and at peace with playing those zone coverages, rather than you're like having so many different things. Like, okay, in this situation we're going to run man, in this situation we're going to run match, in this situation we're going to run Tampa 2, and having so many different things in their heads. Now it's just we're going to run zone, we're going to be a zone team, we're going to take the pressure off the corners. And I think that also speaks to your question about Samra still moving back outside, and Igbenogany back in the slot. I do think they've improved. They both are playing quite well, and Samra still is definitely playing a lot better on the outside. But also when you're playing a lot of zone, that certainly helps your corners, and makes things a fair bit easier for them. So I think Will Harris definitely boosts them. I think having that veteran presence and the communication you talked about back there helps, but I don't think he had a game where it's like, man, he stood out, he was amazing. I think it was more the play calling and the timing of those play calling and the ability to pair those coverages well is what worked really well. So I've got one more on the coverage, and this was a key play late in the game. So this was the Broncos' final drive in regulation. There was about 3 minutes left in the game, and it was 3rd down and 3rd and 4 here, and they were trying to run out the clock, and Washington had just used their second timeout, so a first down here probably kills the game. And so they had clearly done some scouting, and before this part of this clip had happened, the running back initially had started in the backfield, and he motioned out to empty. And Washington's had a tendency all year, when they face empty, when they motion to empty, they will check to Tampa 2. And that's what they check to here. So you get the safety going deep here, you get this safety going deep, you get Bobby Wagner running the middle hole. The Broncos quite clearly knew that this was coming, right? They knew that it was going to be Tampa 2, and they knew that because you see Cortland Sutton line up here inside, almost as a tight end. And what he's going to do is he's just going to run a little hook route over the middle of the field, right here, into what would typically be a weakness of Tampa 2. So what Dan Quinn and you'll remember this probably from the broadcast is Bobby Wagner before the snap ran up to Jacob Martin and said, "Hey, you're doing this." And what Jacob Martin was actually doing was dropping into coverage. And this is what's called drop 8 Tampa 2, where instead of just your 7 zone defenders, you get an 8th guy dropping down, and he's going to fit into that little hole that it becomes from this middle linebacker dropping slightly deeper. Usually there's just that little bit of a hole, which is where Sutton's spotting up. But because Jacob Martin is dropping in, and this is a slight variation and a break of tendency, he drops in, and that basically eliminates that option. So it's another really nice variation, a really nice play call from Dan Quinn. And so you'll see that run here. Again, it's all about Sutton trying to run into this Tampa 2 hole, and Jacob Martin, you can see he just gets in the way, Jacob Martin. And you can see if Martin was rushing, that is quite clearly a little hole right in the middle of Tampa 2 that would be very, very easy for Bo Nix to just fire that in there, get a first down, move the chains, and pretty much win the game. But that slight variation in the coverage, that little tendency breaker to switch to a drop 8 Tampa 2 to get Jacob Martin to drop into the coverage and fill that hole, kills that play from the Broncos. And Bo Nix tries to fire it in there anyway, but Jacob Martin does a nice job of disrupting him, and the throw is not there, and Washington gets off the field. You can see it again here. It's just really nice, really smart play calling. They only go with a 3-man rush, but Bo Nix tries to fit that in there, and Martin bumps him off the route, and they get the stop, and they get off the field. I think it was a really, really nice job by Dan Quinn in this game of, as I say, pairing his coverages really well and knowing how to, flip the script and when show one thing and show the same look the next time and then switch to a different coverage from that look. It was really nice disguising. It was really nice sequencing and pairing of those coverages. And you saw quite a lot in this game that, the Broncos were expecting, hey, we're going to run something to beat cover 3. Suddenly it's quarters and we can't hit that. We're going to run something to beat Tampa 2. Suddenly it's quarter, half, and we can't beat that. I just thought it was a really smart and well thought out game plan from Dan Quinn, and a really well called game during the game by Dan Quinn.
Mark, quick follow-up question. I saw Mitch put it in the chat as well. Are you comfortable with Quinn moving forward as a defensive coordinator, or would you be interested in him potentially being more of a CEO type role next year?
I wouldn't be against it necessarily. I think it's an interesting one to reevaluate in the offseason because there's a lot of questions that come into mind to me of if he's going to be the play calling head coach, what's going to happen with the defensive coordinator position? Does he keep Joe Witt on, which I wouldn't be against? Clearly they have a good relationship and he trusts Joe Witt a lot. Or is Joe Witt going to be willing to stay on without calling plays? Is he going to be willing to take kind of a backseat relegated role? I can't imagine that would be the case. I would imagine Joe Witt probably moves on this season. So then you're going to need to find a new defensive coordinator. Do you then promote a guy internally without giving him the play calling duties? Maybe, but I would have thought if they wanted to promote a guy internally, they would have, given that guy a chance now. Jason Simmons probably would have been the next guy in line. Ken Norton has experience calling plays. You could have given any of those guys an opportunity, and they didn't. So that suggests that they feel like the best play caller currently on the staff would be Dan Quinn. But if they don't want to promote any of those guys that are currently in the building, they'd want to go outside the building. And is anyone going to take the defensive coordinator job without the ability to call plays? I don't know.
And Mark, it seems like more and more in the NFL, the head coaches are less and less calling the plays, because to your point, those of us that follow the NFL closely, like the head coach's job is a lot more than being in the building. They probably spend more time out of the building, right? Like with all the other duties they've got and functions to go to. Hello, kitty cat.
A regular of our show. He comes on every show.
So that's why I'd be surprised maybe if I know at first he said he did not want to call the plays at all next year. Then I guess the Kime story said that he more was like, well, we really haven't gone down that road yet. I haven't really thought about it yet. But it feels like if you could get somebody like, I know he's wanted Al Harris last year, right?
Sure.
But it was going to be a lateral move. This year it would not. I mean, Jerry Jones could not block them from signing Al Harris if they gave him a head or a defensive coordinator job. So I think this is a very interesting offseason, simply because you could be looking at 2 brand new coordinators, right? I mean, there's every opportunity. Cliff Kingsbury's head coaching contract money, I think, runs out, which is why he was getting paid so low this year. And I'm not suggesting they wouldn't pay him if he'd stay. Sounds like he'll take a job elsewhere. So you talk about humongous incoming off seasons. I know we're only halfway through the season, but it's going to be a very interesting off season. See what they do. I kind of hope Dan Quinn doesn't call the plays and find somebody that maybe he can coach up in a way that makes play calling for somebody else easier. We weren't in the room, so we don't know what happened this year with Joe Witt Jr., but it seems like if the man stuff wasn't working, at some point Dan should have said, hey, we've got to do something here, and I'm surprised it took that long.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a really interesting offseason, because you're right. I think there's going to be more staff overhaul than we're necessarily anticipating. It could well be that, Kingsbury ends up deciding to stay and they just end up trying to find, as you say, maybe it's Al Harris to come in and be the defensive coordinator. And I think the good situation now is that they do have an established, decent play caller in the building in Dan Quinn that can do the role. And previously he'd been apprehensive about it, but now they seem to have found a compromise where he feels like he can do it. Whether that is the best use of Dan Quinn, I don't know. But it does mean that it gives them flexibility in the offseason, that if they go and try to find a new defensive coordinator and it's someone that wants to call plays. Let's use Al Harris as an example. If Al Harris, if you have to give him play calling duties to make him leave the situation he's at with the Bears, then you can do that. And you can say, hey, yeah, we're going to give you play calling duties. Let's get you in. And that's great. If it's someone else that, is younger, or maybe it's someone that's older and is more of an advisor kind of thing, that isn't necessarily ready to call plays or isn't worried about calling plays and just wants to help coach them up, then they have Dan Quinn with that ability to call plays. So I think they're in a decent spot in that regard. I think it'll be interesting to see if Dan Quinn now wants to hold on to those play calling duties, or if he wants to stay flexible and give his, he talked a lot when he became a head coach about all the different things that come with being a head coach and how tough that is to call plays while also being a head coach. But obviously, like a lot of what head coaches do now, or a lot of what head coaches are hired for now, is because they were really good play callers. So, and we tend to see that more on the offensive side of the ball. But there's got to be a way to make it work, because there's a lot of good play calling head coaches in the league. So clearly that's something that they can do. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think the good thing is that they have the flexibility that now they feel like Dan Quinn can call plays if he wants to or if he has to, but they could also go back to, if they need to hire someone and they need to offer the play calling duties to someone else to get them in the building, then they can do that too.
Personnel wise, what's their biggest need for next year?
Probably a pass rusher, I would think. Maybe a corner. But probably defensive end pass rusher is probably where I'm at right now as their top need.
If the kid from Ohio State, Caleb Downs, the safety, were there whenever we're picking, and he indeed is some generational safety, would you feel comfortable taking safety that high?
I wouldn't be against taking safety that high. I can't say anything about him specifically.
Sure.
I've not done anything on the draft prospects yet, and we don't really get to watch much college football over here during the season. So I couldn't speak to any individual prospect, but certainly I wouldn't be against a safety that high necessarily. They'd have to be the right kind of guy. They'd have to be able to do a lot. I wouldn't just want a middle field roamer. That would feel like it's a bit of a reach at whatever pick they might have in the if they end up with a top 10 pick or even a top 5 pick, that would feel a bit of a reach. But if you have a do-it-all safety like a Kyle Hamilton type, then absolutely that's worth that kind of a pick. So again, I don't know what this Ohio State safety is like, but
that's your guy, right, George?
I'm a Cornell Tate guy. I'm more of a wide receiver, by the way. I'm on the opposite. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I like Arvell Reese as well, the linebacker edge prospect there too. So one of the Ohio State guys, in my opinion. But so we'll see. Mark, to that end, we have a couple minutes left before we go into our next show. But I'm curious. It looks like we're going to be focusing on the offense right here. So we're talking about Cliff Kingsbury, and Chris Rodriguez had a pretty big breakout game against a really stout defense, huh?
Yeah, I thought a lot of the offense played really well. I thought Rodriguez had a nice game. He ran the ball really well early and really physically early. I thought the offensive line really grew into the game and they really protected well. I thought Kingsbury called a really smart game in that early on the plan was really run the ball and a lot of quick game passes, get the ball out of Mariota's hands early, stay ahead of the chains, be efficient. And then as the game progressed, it moved into more play action stuff, again, helping against that really, really good pass rushing front that the Broncos have. And then towards the end of the game, by helping the offensive line, then that they repaid that faith in that they repaid that help by, later in the game, they had to be trusted more to win one-on-ones and
some shots.
And they did. And they played really well. Sorry, I'm just going to move the cat out of the way.
He's the one to play the play calling.
He's not happy. Hey, you can sit there, buddy. I know.
Cat's like, if I have to see one more play breakdown, Mark, I'm going to fight you.
Yeah. Sorry, bud. I know you're not happy I moved you. He doesn't like not being able to lay on me. So yeah, we've So yeah, I thought the offensive line did a really, really nice job, and I thought I would highlight some of that here. And I thought it was a really good performance by the whole unit, and I thought each individual did really well individually, but also as a group. So I thought we'll start here. This one we're highlighting more the interior trio here. So you've got Chris Paul working against Zach Allen, who's one of the better interior pass rushers in the league right now. He has 6 or so sacks so far. You got Tyler Biadasz working against I can't remember which one these two guys are, but these are both two very stout pass rushers here. You got a little bit of help with the play action fake, but you're going to get one-on-ones across the board on the inside here, and they're going to do a really nice job across the board. So you're going to give first of all, let's focus on Chris Paul. Now, this is one of the top interior pass rushers in the league, and he tries to stunt across his face and get inside, and Chris Paul kind of quick sets him a little bit, works towards him. And this is a position that we've seen Chris Paul lose from in the past because he struggles with quickness because he's a bigger, more physical guy, and he can struggle in space and quickness. And you can see there is a lot of space here. Tunsil is fanning out. You've got Biadasz working to the other side with this guy slanting that way. So there's a lot of space for Chris Paul to have to cover against a lighter, quicker defensive lineman. But what Paul's biggest strength is his hands. He's got really strong hands, and when he gets his hand on the guy's chest here, he's able to just kind of stonewall him and stop him from getting inside and cut off that path inside just purely from the strength of his arm and his hands. So he stops him, and you see this guy kind of tussle in and out, try to get inside and out, and Paul just keeps his hands on him and matches him the whole way because of his hand strength. You can see he manages to cut off that run, tries to go back outside, cuts off that way, tries to get back inside, cuts off that way. And you can see by the time Mariota's delivering the throw, there's a good, 5 yards here between Paul and Mariota. That's a really, really strong pocket. Elsewhere, you've got, Larry Tunsil running his guy behind the quarterback. You got Tyler Biadasz anchoring against a nose tackle, a bigger nose tackle, trying to shove him back. You got these two guys fanning out here, Cosme and Connolly fanning out, and you can see this is just a really nice pocket for Mariota to work with.
Yeah, put that in a loop. It's a fantastic. It's a photo of like an ideal offensive lineman there. It's fantastic. It's great.
Exactly. So that I thought was a really, really nice example of everyone doing a good job. This time we get a little bit of a stunt inside here. So you got this defensive tackle stunts inside, and then Allen wraps around him or loops around him. And you can see sometimes these interior stunts are kind of hard to pick off because typically you would have a lot of protection schemes have a man side and a zone side or a slide side. So you'd have maybe the center sliding this way and these guys working man to man. So these stunts can be kind of hard because then you've got a mix up of, who's sliding which way and which guy's going man to man. But they pass this off really well. So you see immediately Chris Paul works out to this guy and with a quick set, and he's quite clearly stunting across. So he passes him off. Tyler Biadasz picks up this guy who comes inside from Cosme. And so what you see is Paul gets a nice shove on this guy to force him out to Cosme, and Cosme peels off and leaves his guy to Biadasz, and Cosme picks up Paul's guy. And what you end up getting is essentially Cosme stays right guard, Biadasz almost becomes the left guard, and Chris Paul almost becomes the center. So they pass everything off, and once again you get a nice pocket for everyone to work, for the quarterback to work from. Everyone gets picked up, and it's a nice job again. And they hit another nice ball to Zach.
Mark, is this the best offensive line they've had since Trent Williams and Moses and Sheriff? I mean, it feels like they've got that kind of line, particularly if you're a Chris Paul truther.
Yeah, I think it's a really good line. I thought that they had a real there's been a lot of criticism for Adam Peters, but I think the main focus he had this offseason was building up that offensive line. Obviously, he invested a first-round pick in Josh Connolly. There was the Larry Tunsil trade. They signed Tyler Biadasz in free agency last year. They extended Sam Cosme before the season last year.
Wiley, Allegretti, Coleman on the bench. They have a pretty deep offensive line too. It's pretty impressive.
So I think they really invested on making this offensive line and building that up around Jaden Daniels, because they know an offensive line and a quarterback can be the foundation of an offense and an entire team. And I think this game you really saw that kind of vision now that you finally got all five sort of playing together and having some continuity with, Cosme finally getting back healthy and getting into the swing of things. Chris Paul establishing himself here, Connolly coming along now, and Larry Tunsil just being excellent. Like
Stud.
you're finally getting to see the vision of what Adam Peters had when he put this line together. And other than Chris Paul, it's all under contract for next year. And you would imagine Chris Paul would be a fairly high priority for them and someone they should be able to re-sign.
I was going to ask you that. It feels like he is a top priority, right?
Yeah. So I think he would be a top priority. I do think there is a limit to what they'd go for him because they've already got, Larry Tunsil is going to need to be extended. They've already got a big contract on Sam Cosmi. Tyler Biotish is on a fairly decent, free agent contract. They've got a first-round pick in Josh Connolly. There's only so much you can invest in the offensive line.
Right.
And so when we saw in free agency last year, we saw backup left tackles and right tackles getting paid starter money to go play left tackle for some teams in the league. So that's where you start thinking, is Chris Paul going to get some team come in and offer him $20 million a year to play guard for them because he's had 5 good games? There is a depth of offensive line play in the league, and those guys tend to get valued and paid quite well in free agency. So if he's going to get a contract like that, they're not going to be able to match that. I mean, they could, but they probably won't.
Not if they're going to pay Tunsil 30.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so that they probably would just plug Coleman back in there, but I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing anyway. They've at least got 5 or 6 guys that they can trust right now. So I think it's a really good unit and one that should be future-proofed for the next few seasons as well.
And one thing to say on that, I think I was never a proponent of trading Brandon Coleman. And that was part of a conversation like before the deadline to get rid of him. I never thought that was wise because he's a young talent. He's athletic. He plays guard and tackle. I just think we talked about it, you and I, Doug, about how he kind of got the short end of the stick where he had to move to multiple positions over the summer, right? He was a left tackle, then a right tackle, then a left guard. He had to learn different positions, and that put him at a disadvantage there. One last thing, then I'll throw back to you, Mark. One thing that I loved working with you earlier on in the summer is when we got Josh Connolly, we had a film breakdown for him, and we just kind of looked at his technicality and his athleticism. I've always been a believer in him. Like I know we talked about the first couple games with through Gauntlet, through those strong edge rushers. I'm really happy to see that he's starting to find his footing, that other people are seeing that as well because he truly is a talent. And I think he's going to be, once he fills out and he gets that professional body in 22, 23, 24 years old, I think it's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to him.
When I talked to Logan Paulson about Connolly, he said the biggest thing Connolly needs to do, he said, when you go walk down the halls of an NFL building and you shake the hand of like a 10-year left tackle vet, their bodies have become so calcified because of those little short bursts and power moves that their hands, when you shake them, are like grabbing concrete blocks. He said that when Connolly gets there, he'll be unstoppable. But that's what he needs, is put on some more strength, lower body strength, and become calcified.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was always the case with him coming in. I've said it since before the draft and after the draft and all off season and at the start of the year. He's got amazingly quick feet. He's got decent amount of quick sets and different sets, pass sets, and he's been a lot better in the run game than I anticipated him being. The one thing that he struggles with is power and lower body strength, and you've seen him improve with that this year over the course of the season, and that's why he is starting to play better. He's still got a ways to go in that regard, but he's generally started to come on quite strongly the past few weeks, and then this one, was right up there with his best games of the year. And him and Tunsil, I think you have bookend tackles there, and that's exactly what I think Adam Peters envisioned with this offseason. Like, yeah, sure that it would have been nice to get another pass rusher and maybe you argue about a receiver, or given Noah Brown's injury history and what have you. But I think the main objective of the offseason was we're going to build up this offensive line around Jaden, and we're starting to see the benefits of that now. Now that they're getting everyone healthy and into the NFL program and with Connolly and getting him up to speed and stuff, you're starting to see that come together, and it can be a real strong unit for the team going forward. I don't know if we want to do one more play. I know you guys have got to head out soon.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of time.
Yeah, we have. Go ahead.
So we'll do one more play here. So we've got this one again focuses on, rather than the interior, although we do get another nice rep from Biotish against Zach Allen, who stunts inside. We'll focus on the exterior, where we got Connolly working against Jonathan Cooper, and we got Tunsil working against Nick Bonito. So we'll focus on Tunsil first round through, and you'll just see so smooth, so able to cut off rushes. Let's run that back. He's just, Nick Bonito is a really good speed rusher. He really can get off the snap quickly. He's taking a real wide alignment here. A lot of tackles would need a chip here to be able to catch up. But Tunsil he's a wily veteran, but he's also got amazing feet. He knows he can just slide back calmly and be so smooth, and just watch just how smooth he is catching up to this speed rush. Not troubled at all, just calmly sliding off, gets his hand on the chest, cuts off that rush, runs him by the quarterback, and Benito realizes, oh, I'm getting run by the quarterback here. I need to spin this back inside. And that's where he finds that Chris Paul is also there to help out. And he's like, well, this rep is pretty much over. And other things happen where Mariota ends up having to try to scramble and it doesn't have a pass. But it was a nice rep from Tunsil. If we look back on the other side of the line, we get Josh Connolly working against Jonathan Cooper. And we see that footwork, the smooth footwork to be able to get out and cut off that speed rush. And where he has struggled this year is either guys converting to power or guys trying to beat him inside, where he oversets a little bit and creates a bit of too much of a gap inside. But here you see him do a really nice job of reacting to that inside rush. So he's able to plant that foot outside. He gets a little bit lungy. You'd like to not see him lunge quite so much, but he's able to get his hands on the guy's chest while he readjusts his footwork, opens his hip and his foot to get back inside, cuts off that inside rush. And again, he's a little bit lungy, but he's able to use his weight to kind of force him down the line and prevent him from hitting that gap and putting pressure on the quarterback. He kind of just washes him down the line and takes him out of the play and actually opens up that lane for Mariota to then scramble to the edge and go run and pick up a first down himself. So I figure you guys probably want to get out there, but that was just a couple of nice plays to show, the offensive line were really good.
This line will have a big test on Sunday, Mark, when they face this Brian Flores defense. What do they need to do to be successful?
So the issue with the Brian Flores defense is more mental than physical. Like, yes, they have good pass rushers up front, but it's who they blitz and where they blitz them from, and sometimes it's all out blitzes, and sometimes it's simulated pressures where it's just 4, but you never know which 4 are coming. And sometimes it's 5, but 2 are coming from the secondary and what have you. So it's a really well varied and mixed pass rush. Blitzes are going to come, so you're going to have to win one-on-one. But this line is capable of winning one-on-one. It's going to be more about identifying which guys are coming and making sure that you're getting your offensive lineman on those guys, and you're not getting kind of caught out by the line sliding right and the blitz coming from the left, sort of thing. That will be on Tyler Biadasz, but also whoever's in at quarterback to help identify that kind of thing and make sure the protection's set properly. So it's going to be more about the protection plan and the mental side of things, I think, than the physical ability to block guys. I think they have that ability to block those guys. I think it's just, can they keep up with the mental game that Flores will put them through.
So before we get out of here, Mark, what is your biggest takeaway from this game Monday night?
The upcoming year, or the game we just had?
This game against the Broncos.
I think the biggest takeaway was how well Dan Quinn called the defense, and I think I hopefully was able to show that the ability to pair, like they didn't throw anything too exotic at them. It was just pairing coverages and calling them well at the right time, so that when the Broncos thought, okay, we're getting cover 3, we'll run 4 verticals, suddenly, oh no, it's quarters and our 4 verticals coverage concept is dead. Or we think we're getting inverted Tampa 2, so we'll run a corner flat concept and we'll beat that. Oh no, we're running quarter half and we've got quarters to the corner flat side. That's also now dead, and we have to hold on to the ball. That's just really good coaching and really good play calling from Dan Quinn, and that's going up against one of the better offensive play callers in the league for the last few decades in Sean Payton. So that speaks to a really good job that Dan Quinn's doing with not quite as much talent on defense as they would probably like.
For those still watching, we're gonna take a quick break, go get something to drink, and then we'll be back at like 5:05, something like that, to do our Opposition Wednesday with our very good buddy Thor Nystrom, who has covered the Vikings for a long time and is great with the draft. And we're always pumped to have him on. So if you're watching now, come back in 15 minutes and we'll run it again. Mark, this was great, buddy, and it's been too long. I'm glad we're back at it because this is what we like to do.
Yeah, of course. Look forward to next week.
All right, George, I'll see you in a minute, buddy.
All right, see you guys. Peace. Have a good night.